Trends or disruptive technology? We speak to Aki Anastasiou, TV and radio host, one of the speakers of My World of Tomorrow conference and exhibition.
What makes something a technology trend is when it starts to change people's lives, and when it starts impacting and touching people's lives in everything that they do, then it starts to become a trend. And when it starts impacting business and it starts impacting everything around us, that domino effect starts happening, and then it starts becoming a trend. In the past, it was business that would dictate to consumers how things are happening around us. It's now consumers who are doing it, and this is why businesses have had to evolve, and this is why businesses have even failed, because they failed to see that the demand around us is now being driven by consumers. Africa is embracing new trends, and Africa is even creating new trends, because we are creating technologies and we are evolving around technologies because of the necessity around us, and this necessity sometimes you don't find in other countries. So we are evolving and even changing things to such a degree that we are creating new technologies. We are creating innovation that doesn't exist in other countries, and this is why it's so exciting to be on this continent, because there's so much innovation. True innovation is really happening on the African continent. We certainly do have the infrastructure, and if you compare where we were 5 years ago and the connectivity that we had, it was almost non-existent on the continent. Now you have undersea cables, you've got mobile connectivity across the whole continent, and this is essentially what's driving this continent, is the mobility. People have got mobile phones. The penetration of the mobile phone is really high, and the smartphone penetration is increasing. But I think just globally, I think Eric Schmidt said it perfectly, that we are living in a world today where most people haven't even yet touched the digital technology that we have around us. We're really at the cusp, we're really at the beginning of this exciting thing, and the next 10 years is really where it's going to explode, and people are going to have access to this digital technology around us. The big 5 trends is really the connectivity, being driven by mobility and the phone that we hold in our hands. And if you can imagine billions of connected devices, the Internet of Things that we have around us, all of it being driven by big data. So you're going to have things that are attached to our bodies, things that are attached to walls, everything's going to be sharing data. The Internet of Things, the notion of the Internet of Things is literally billions of devices, and it's becoming a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And we're not talking about in the next 20 years. This is all going to happen within the next 5 years. So you've got this explosion of big data, which essentially is dumb data, but it's us as human beings who are creating the clever algorithms that will make sense of that data and turn it into something intelligent that we can use in our everyday lives and assist us in our everyday lives. So certainly big data, the Internet of Things, where you're seeing the massive explosion in the trends that are happening with 3D printing, where we have now 3D printing happening, that it's not just printing plastic, but you're printing different materials in one device. So, you know, the medical field is going to be impacted by that. Space age, industry is going to be impacted by that. 3D printing. Then you have augmented and virtual reality, which is changing things around us. And the big disruptions that we're going to see happening is in the medical field. The medical industry is set for massive disruption, as is the motoring industry. We've heard about self-driving cars. We've seen them in the movies, and they look far-fetched and futuristic, but they're just around the corner. And that's not 20 to 30 years. That's in the next 5 years, where you'll have cars driving human beings without needing any human assistance. Trends and disruptive technology are kind of very similar, but you kind of have a trend that starts happening, and it's almost like a wave, and I call this wave this digital tsunami. The digital tsunami that's heading our way, it starts off as a wave out in the middle of the ocean, but as it moves towards the shoreline, it starts getting bigger and bigger, and that's when it becomes a disruption. And that's the kind of disruption we are seeing happening in the medical industry, in the technology industry, like motoring, for example, and businesses that fail to see these waves and this digital tsunami coming towards them and not acting quick enough are the ones that don't survive it. So it's about adapting, it's about being agile, it's about businesses understanding what the customer wants and how technology is impacting all of that around them.